Hey everybody, we're Pole DFS. I'm Ricky.
I'm Keaton.
And we're talking about Dover.
Yeah, new track.
New track for you, man.
They're all new tracks for me.
Yeah, it's a track, it's a mile, it has high bankings, it's in Delaware.
And
there's a monster.
There's a monster.
Whose name is Miles.
And they're running the 750 horsepower package again.
There you go. And so if you liked last week, then, I don't know, you might like this week. Dover's different than Darlington, but
are we
still
expecting more or less passing with a tighter track?
It is a tighter track, and it's concrete, and so you would expect to have a little bit more passing. I don't know. I will say I thought the race last week was great. I obviously understand why people who don't like the fact that Truex led 575 of the 300 laps. Would feel the way they do, but I think they're wrong. I think the way that Larson ran him down at the end, wasn't quite able to get him, plus the rest of the action. I thought it was a really good race. But that being said, it will definitely be interesting. I think the high bankings going into the straightaways and that type of thing is pretty narrow track. We're definitely going to see a lot of passing. I don't know if I'd say more, but a lot of passing, a lot of opportunities to tear some stuff up. And so we'll talk a little bit about that as we go through and have some fun. So, yeah, Dover. But as usual, we start with our weekly show beer. This is the Citraphilia by Lenny Boy.
Yep.
I was telling Keaton before we started, I've never actually been to Lenny Boy's tap room. I know where it is, but I've never actually been there.
I've been once. It's nice, and I actually heard now, Kelly actually wanted to go recently, they do plants. They have like a plant store inside the brewery.
Like a flower
plants,
shop?
I think explicitly like small house plants. Like you, like one of those build your own small plant things.
I didn't know you could build a plant.
Yep. Assemble probably is the better word. Assemble your own. Plant your own plant? That feels right.
Plant your own plant. There you go.
So you can have a beer and bring home a cute little plant.
There you go. In
Charlotte, North Carolina.
That is an option. And the Citraphilia, it's very green. At least the label is. So it seems
quite a tasty beer, too.
It seems fitsy with that.
Really good beer. And actually, Lenny Boy's good because they have non-alcoholic options like kombucha that they brew. So like my sister-in-law that doesn't drink.
Wait, kombucha is not alcoholic?
I think it has like 0.0. It's like NA beer or whatever.
Okay.
It has some super, super small. Like my sister that doesn't drink that's sober still will drink kombucha. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
And now that you guys tuned into our what is drinkable around Charlotte.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, as usual, thank you to our viewers. And then right now we are going to jump into the race recap.
Because we have some stuff to recap.
Because I did good, but Keaton, as usual, just did a little bit better.
It was a good week for our team.
Trucks trash for me. You did pretty decent in trucks.
I accidentally entered a 180 in trucks, and I almost took it down until the last restart. Even after the crazy restart in trucks, I actually ended up really looking good. I was entering a bunch of $10 while Ricky and I were at the golf, and had a few drinks, I guess, and accidentally entered a 180 and almost took it down, but ended up doing okay there. Made a few bucks on trucks. Nothing good for me on Xfinity. Ricky did really well on Xfinity.
Yeah, so in trucks, all of my people wrecked. So the big wreck where everyone just went like this, and then like everyone hit the wall. Yeah, those are all my people. I really like Sheldon Creed, and he ended up winning. But basically, he was the only one that survived of my player pool. Like, honest to God, like it was like basically only him. But that being said, in Xfinity, it was a lot better. And I was big on the JRM cars, all the Junior Motorsports cars, and they performed really, really well. Obviously, at the end, it was an Allgaier versus Josh Berry race. Also, just give Josh Berry a full-time ride. Some sponsor needs to sponsor him, get him in a car for a full season, watch him win a championship, and then it just happens. Nonetheless, but all the JRM cars did really well. Allgaier won. Josh Berry finished second. Noah Gragson, after the appeal, finished fourth.
Yeah, back to finishing fourth.
Yeah, fourth, not fourth. And then Michael Arnett finished seventh or something like that.
Wow, that's a heck of a run for the JRM
all four in the top 7. And I had one lineup that had all 4. And I can't remember who else I had in it, but I had a couple other guys that finished pretty well in like the low 20s.
Some good point differential.
Like high 15s or like mid to high teens that got some point differentials. And I was able to finish, I actually don't remember. I finished first in an $800 to win.
Yep. And then there was
one
you
finished
third
second,
in the big one for
third,
500.
The third in the 1500 or maybe there was a 5K to win.
I don't know. It was a bigger one.
I won 500.
Yeah.
So I ended up winning. I had about $170 worth of entries.
Nice.
And I won just over $1,500.
Nice.
Which I said was a $1,300 net, which would actually be more than that. But I also lost a bunch of that, and not a bunch, but some of that in between trucks and cup because I didn't have enough Truex. My only cash outs for my Truex ones
you had to have Truex. You ran so hard.
I had 25 lineups. 5 lineups had Truex in them. Those 5 lineups cashed. The other 5 did not.
Yep.
And that's how it was. But I netted about 700 this weekend, which was a win.
Yeah, a win's a win.
And but it wasn't Keaton who netted a lot.
Talk about Sunday. So I maxed the $5 150 max, 10K to win lug nut, and I ended up I split that one with somebody for 6,500 first. I had a few other that cash. So yeah, first place in that one was awesome. Had a Truex Larson lineup with Chastain, Newman, a couple other drivers. But what was actually funny is I had another lineup that I thought was going to win that tournament that I think would have been a solo, but the late Bell pit for a new tire.
When Bell dropped out because
I ended up
flat tire or something.
Yeah, I ended up dropping on that one, and it wasn't until Larson crept up those last few spots at the end that took me over the top. So that was awesome.
Yeah.
Fun win. As I was texting Rick, he's like, I just saw it. So that was awesome.
I literally I was in the same one. I think I finished like 200 and something, which is like winning $10.
Yeah.
I literally just happened to click on it to see how my people were doing, and there he was on the leaderboard. But nonetheless, it's such an interesting thing though. Is that, like, I think that we talk about how like you thought one was gonna win, and then the late happenstance happened. And for me on Xfinity on Saturday, I was set to win. I was probably gonna win like $300 or $400. Like my rosters were good. And then that last restart, when they got that last caution, when some of the people pitted, like some of the guys pitted, some didn't, or most of them didn't, but some of them did. And so it got some of the other like highly owned guys kind of towards the back, like Harrison Burton. Austin Cindric just didn't run really well, which was lucky for me because I didn't have him. But like some of those other guys that made Allmendinger and some other people who like were running a little bit better than they ended up finishing, kind of fell off. I was able to kind of hop in there and go from finishing probably 20th to first, right? And that is I think that's the luck aspect of DFS, right?
How like, the last run outs go.
I struggle with this a lot. Is that like the difference between finishing 50 in a very big pool, like obviously if you have a small pool, then like there's a big difference between finishing 50 and first. But like in like a 10,000 people pool or even a 2,000 people pool, the difference between finishing 50th and first or 50th and top 10, which is really in the top 10 is where you make any money, is so small. And so that's something that like I've been a lot probably luckier recently that I wasn't when I first started DFS. And like part of that is, I'm better at building lineups and that type of thing, and like that's coming to fruition. But also there is just a certain luck aspect where you like sometimes you hit it and you get it exactly right, and it just the cards fall a little bit wrong and you finish 50th and you win like $10 back on like a $3 bet, right? And it's like, and because like
but you got almost everything right.
You got almost everything right. And so like it's really, really hard, and I think it's something that I'm trying to do a better job of like talking to myself about, and like when I am able to like pop up and win like I did in the Xfinity race, I'm pumped. But like in the Cup race on Saturday, I think in the one that you won, I finished like 200, which like is good. Like because it's
put up a top score.
I don't even know what. I'll look real quick. Like there was probably how many people were
9,500.
9,500, and like to be in the top 200, like you did great.
Yeah.
Like it may not necessarily be that like you won like a lot of money and like I net lost in the Cup Series, but like I was close. Like I was that close.
And that score would have won a lot of smaller tournaments. Yeah. So that's
I think that's an important way to look at it. And sometimes it's easy to lose sight of that, and like especially right now because it seems to be that for some reason me and you seem to be on what I would call a heater.
Variance goes both ways though.
And it could very well end any time. But the last few weeks we've been hitting on a bunch of stuff. I won SuperDrafts. You won the 20K golf. You won the 6,500. That one. I won a couple of the smaller ones in Xfinity, and like it shows that we are obviously on the knowledge side is very capable of performing well, and like our strategy is like the way we approach things is good.
Yeah. But those results could have easily been 10 spots lower and none of the money. So
it's just something to keep an eye on as you go through because every week is going to be different, and I'm trying to better. I don't know if
so a good mental aspect about it.
Yeah, and like the way I appraise like how the week went.
That makes sense.
It's not necessarily like whether or not I won.
So Blender, a guy that I like for NFL, he is one of the Roto Gainer guys. He has a good phrase he likes to say when he wins, he says he was lucky. When he loses, he says it was he did something wrong in his process. Yeah. So when he's on a downswing, he's like constantly trying to reevaluate what can I do doing better, whatever. When he wins, he's not patting himself on his back saying like, oh, I did something really good. He's like, oh, I got lucky. The process worked well, but I got lucky. That's how you win.
Yeah.
And so that way, I think that's a good like way to keep yourself from like getting a big head. If
I know some other way to go crazy, but yeah.
I know, but
I think it's completely fair to like keep constantly appraising the way that you're approaching it, and to not get a big head. Exactly what you're saying when you do win, but at the same time. When you are winning and you're doing and you're being consistent on how you're approaching it and you're winning, that should show you that what you're doing is good.
The process is right.
The process is correct. And so it don't let that bring you down when like you have a couple weeks or a couple races where like you run into like bad luck. Literally like this.
Sometimes the second row restarts and runs over the first row.
Well, this week in Cup, we talked a lot about Almirola, and I had a ton of Almirola, and he wrecked on lap 6. And it happens. Or like a couple weeks ago at Talladega when Kyle Larson literally they didn't remove the pan on the radiator vent, and like literally like he blew his motor on lap. I think he made it to lap 6, but he blew his motor on lap 1. Let's be fair. And like those are things that like happen, but as long as you trust the process.
The Larson one probably shouldn't be a thing that happens. Let's be fair.
What?
They're a professional race car team. That's probably shouldn't be one that happens. I'm not sure I'm going to chalk that one up to things that happen.
I'm still mad.
But blowing up randomly early in the race is something that
still
can
mad
happen.
About it. Okay.
That version of it probably shouldn't be one that happens.
But it happens in the sense that like unlucky we can't control it, right? Like
for sure.
It should never happen. It was so bad.
That one's pretty amateur
hour. As usual, I would love to have been in the...
Oh, someone lost their job. Someone had to have lost their job over that. I don't own a race team, but if I did, that dude wouldn't have a job.
As usual, DraftKings, 4 ways to score points. Lap base or finish base. For lap base, you get laps led, you get fastest lap. For finish base, you get points for how you finish, position differential. Yep. As we walk through that... 400 laps, 400 miles. The number in the race is 400. I'm pretty sure there's 400 laps this week.
You double checked.
It's a 1 mile track. They go 400 miles.
400 divided by 1. Math checks out.
Yes.
Math checks out.
But 400 laps. We look at average laps led since February 2018. It's a little bit weird because last year they ran 2 311 lap races because they ran 2 on the same weekend because they were catching up with COVID. But
did you say they're doing that again on this season sometime?
They're running Pocono twice this year. Okay. Yeah. I think that's for the Olympics, if I'm not mistaken. That's how it was supposed to be last year, and I'm pretty sure they're doing it again this year on the same week.
Is it for viewing of the Olympics? Is it for airtime or for
so they have a bye week for the week that the Olympics runs that week because NBC picks up coverage of NASCAR at Indianapolis, I think.
Really? So it's not all Fox all year?
It's half and half.
Oh, I'm going to have to download a new app. That's not fun.
There you go. You already have that app.
Is that what golf's on? Perfect.
Yeah. But nonetheless, as you look at it, the average lap sled, Harvick, again, we just talk about Harvick every week. And
something's just off this year, right?
It's just a little... But the thing is that, like, I will say, like, we talked about it a lot more earlier in the year. And, like, I'm not sure he's up to the cars are up to a place where like he's going to dominate and lead 100, 200 laps.
Yeah.
But I think he is definitely in a position where he is a viable player in DFS. Because,
we saw him finish second last week.
Or 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. And then he ran not bad last week. He didn't run great. I think he led some laps and then finished top 10, right? Yeah. Right. And so like I think we're to a point where Harvick has shown, and I mean Harvick's just probably one of the top 2 or 3 race car drivers in Cup Series, but like I think he's shown that like he's he disagrees, he's wrong, but it's fine.
I mean I've only been a fan this last year when his car probably hasn't been there, so
yeah, he won the most races last year. So is that right? I think that's right. But nonetheless, like I think that. It's definitely a little bit misleading because obviously those cars were a lot better last year, and we talk about it literally every week. But like, I think you have to talk about it every week because if we're looking at it with like the retrospective, if we look at it from a retrospective statistics point of view, he's going to pop every week because he was so good last year.
Yeah, his numbers are all good.
And
one thing when you dive into these numbers, when you look at an individual race, what is the distribution for guys leading laps? Is it like, do we see someone running up front most of the time? It's
not as big and obvious as like Darlington last week, where like Truex. Actually, I'll click to the next slide because I actually included like the lap sled.
Oh, okay.
So like for fastest lap, which is really a proxy. Like fastest lap or lap sled is really a proxy for fastest lap. I look at it through the same scope when I'm doing my statistics side.
That makes sense.
But like if you look at it, like Denny in the first race last year, Denny led 115 laps. Truex led 88 laps. Austin Dillon led 49 laps, which was interesting to me. And then, also the interesting thing is literally the next day they ran back-to-back days, and the fastest laps and laps leader are different. Like obviously Harvick led 223 laps.
Yeah, what's interesting about those 2 races being the same is in one, so I'm guessing in the race number 2 there, you would have probably played, or the optimal lineup would have almost only had a 1 dominator with Harvick and then all the rest placed differential points. In the other one, you probably would have had Truex and Hamlin for dominator
probably
points.
Austin Dillon too.
And then, depending on where Dillon started and where he, whatever.
I'm sure he could have been
cheaper. He might not have been a dominator
but
he got dominator points.
Dominator, yeah.
But he also probably scored you point differential. So that's really interesting. Like when I try to think, so last week when I was building lineups, I went heavier on a 2 dominator build because I guess we didn't have as many laps to lead and thought that we would be more consolidated. And so I chose 2 when I think they're more consolidated. And when I think they're more spread out, I tend to go 3. I guess it always depends also on the slate on how what kind of point differential plays you have, like when you have Larson starting 32nd or whatever. And so it's interesting to see. Like I don't think you really can take a clear look on. They raced back-to-back days, and it was.
I think you end up coming very much how you did last week, though, right? Is it like
some 2s,
you end
some
up
3s.
doing some 2s, some 3s? I don't think like and I don't off the top of my head remember how they finished in the second race, but I'm sure that like the second I'm sure that the optimal lineup wasn't a single gunner. I'm sure that the optimal lineup probably had 2 gunners, right? Like even if like the person finished second and didn't lead that many laps, but like
you just got their place finishing for 40 points per second.
Exactly, and so I think you're definitely.
Did Harvick win that race?
I believe so. That sounds right. I'll check to make sure. I'm pretty sure he did. But
so when they run on back-to-back days, they do them shorter.
Just to like because just so they don't have any problems because they run the same car.
They do run the same car. Wow, that's pretty.
I'm not 100% sure of that, but I'm pretty sure they do.
So yeah, I mean, looking at this though, I mean, like I said, I'm not sure I can kind of glean. I think, like you said, I'll probably approach it similarly. Last week I did 75% 2s, 25% 3s. So I'm probably will dig into the prior races here a little bit more.
Hamlin and Harvick were the 2 winners last year.
So Hamlin did win the first race. Harvick won the second race. So almost assuredly, Hamlin, Truex. I guess depending on where Truex finished, but he led 88 laps.
Yeah.
Hamlin, Truex, Dillon probably were optimal in that first race.
Oh yeah, probably. That sounds correct.
And then, depending on where Almirola started, he may have been as well in the second race. But yeah, so that's interesting.
Truex finished second.
Oh yeah, so almost assuredly it went 1-2. And
Dillon fall off.
Okay, so he may not have been just leading laps may not have gotten there, but leading 49 laps. I mean that's
he finished 15th. So depending on where he started,
points.
He finished. Let's see. I'll just do it while I'm here because I'm literally on the page.
Getting our NASCAR data.
Exactly. This is how it happens, boys and girls.
But I mean, the numbers are important, right? I mean, that's what I'm using to build lineups. I'm kind of.
He started 32nd. He was optimal either way.
Okay.
Just leading laps and finishing 15th was.
Starting
sure he was optimal.
Sure
he was optimal. I don't know what his price tag was, but I'm sure it was not as high as it should have been.
Yep.
Which we'll talk about in a minute. There's a few people this week that I don't think are as high as they probably should be.
Yep.
As we'll go through, I think the lower end's a little bit not flatter, but like less dense.
Okay.
I don't think there's as many guys down. I know last couple weeks, like we had like Alfredo, like at Talladega when Alfredo was like 4,500, and it was like
free.
It just feels like you need to play him. Like, and there was a couple guys, but like even like last week when you had like Priest and Logano both in like the mid 5s, not even like the high 5s.
Not Logano.
LaJoy, sorry.
I was to say, we hammer Logano at the mid 5s.
give me Logano, just 100% ownership.
Yeah, mid 5s. Literally every contest.
The one guy that hasn't, or the one guy or girl that has him, and he wrecks, just wins.
Yep, the person that doesn't roster, yeah, exactly.
But no, I don't think we see it as much this week, which we'll talk about as we get further on. And but yeah, no, I thought it was really interesting when I did look at the fastest lap and that type of thing from last year. Is that like they ran back-to-back days and it was very different
different races, yeah,
and very different ways that they came out. And it probably is a credit to like Harvick, right? Who they ran the first race and they were able to fix whatever problem they had.
He's nowhere to be seen on the first,
right?
yeah.
And I think last week. Keselowski talked about it, or he tweeted about it. Like, basically said, like, we missed it. Like, they were not good last week. They finished, mid-teens. Like, basically, I think he started towards the front first or second and just, like, went straight to the back. Or not to the back, but, like, to the middle. And just was not good the whole race. And, like after the race, he basically said something to the effect of, like, we missed it today, but we think we know what it is. Okay. And, like, this. And, like, that's where, like, when you run back-to-back races, which is something that we'll talk about when we run Pocono. I don't know how we'll shoot the show for that because, like, it is Saturday, Sunday races.
I assume it'll be separate DFS contests.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Okay. And so, like, I don't know if we'll try to do a show in between or if we'll kind of do, like,
this will depend if you're racing that weekend.
That is actually the truth. And, but, like, there are people that get, and these are the people that get better throughout a race too, right? The people that get better throughout the race are the people that are like if you have 2 races back to back, are able to upgrade.
They know what's
wrong.
Better. They know what to.
And I know actually, I did want to note this. So they ran Darlington last year 2 weeks in a row.
Okay.
And Clint Boyer, who is now the announcer, but ran in the 14 car last year,
okay.
was talking specifically about this. He said, we went out there in the first Darlington race, and we were terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And we took Harvick's setup, who's his teammate, the next week, and they led like 150 laps. So that is something to also think about. So like maybe when we do get like these back-to-back races, maybe there is value in like the teammate of somebody who ran really, really well. And like you look at it, right? Like and it's weird here too, because like the Stewart Haas cars just didn't run good in the first race, and they ran good in the second race.
Yeah.
But like Alex Bowman was fast, even though he didn't lead laps, when Chase was fast in the first race. So like maybe something to that effect. But it's just something to keep an eye on as we go. Obviously, it's not applicable here. But
still interesting.
Yeah. No,
so do they have private tracks that they're testing week to week on, or what do they do? How do they do that?
So the amount of testing that they're able to do is super limited. So like historically,
limited by NASCAR.
Yeah, limited by NASCAR. So like historically, like literally, like NASCAR would sometimes like limit like the specific tracks they could go to, but like they could go to like any like for like if they wanted to test on like a short track, they just go to like
go pop
track.
off the Hickory. And...
So like Landon Castle actually was talking about when this was like the early teens when they were running in New Hampshire that week, and Jimmy Johnson had like Chad Canals, who's Jimmy Johnson's crew chief, had like a potential setup to run at New Hampshire, and they sent Landon Castle to who tries in Xfinity now,
okay.
But he was a developmental driver and ran for Hendrick for a long time, and they sent him to North Wilkesboro because it has enough similarities between the two, and to test that package like the week of. But like nowadays,
so you couldn't do that kind of stuff.
Nowadays, there's basically no like actually testing of the cars. Like obviously, like,
is that because of COVID or is that changing?
No, that's been our change of rules for the last few years. Like it's hard. They're trying to make it more. They're trying to make it like more balanced, and to where it's not just like I have $1 billion and I can throw it at anything.
They can afford all the testing they want.
Like I think there's definitely like an aspect of like I think it like with the COVID stuff, it's made it even more exacerbated with like no practice, no qualifying.
Yeah.
Especially in
like the Almirola thing where he got loose. I mean, you think he would have worked that out in some sort of early
100%,
race practice?
100%.
He would have never gotten a loose car in 100%. The corner. Yeah.
And like Cup is not as near as bad as Trucks and Xfinity is.
Because
like,
the budgets are even less, or what?
Well, because the drivers are less experienced. And like especially Trucks, where like a lot of these drivers like have never ran, like they may have ran ARCA or late models, but like they've never ran Trucks or any of the higher series, and like this is the first time they're hitting the track on some of these like
that's wild.
in some of these, like when the race starts, which is just insane to me.
The green flag is the first time.
Yeah, I think it's again what we talk about a little bit every week when like people do make the jump from Xfinity to Cup. Like I'm very hesitant to pump those people. Obviously, when Cindric was up and they priced him super low that one week, but like most weeks, like it's a hard jump to make without any practice. And I understand why they don't have as much practice because of A, COVID, and B, like it is much.
Feels like it's got to be time to go.
It's
with that
much
now.
cheaper for like so. There's a huge cost effectiveness side that you don't have to bring your entire team to the track on like Thursday or Friday and keep them throughout the weekend, hotels and just all of it, right?
That makes sense.
And it makes total sense in that regard, but like there's certain aspects that could be a little bit better, and I would like. It's actually one thing that's really going to be annoying to us next week is that they are qualifying for the Circuits of Americas on Sunday morning.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So we won't know any place. So how is DraftKings going to do pricing?
They will price beforehand, which is going to be just an absolute.
So they're going to price it ahead of time. They will qualify Monday, so we will find out.
Qualify Sunday.
Or Sunday. So we'll find out the
race on Sunday. Yeah.
So Sunday morning we'll find out the starting grid.
Yep.
Oh, everyone follow Bob. Bob will keep us all informed.
Yep.
We'll retweet Bob. If you don't follow Bob, follow us. We'll retweet Bob.
I don't even know. But anyways.
That's wild.
As usual, we've gotten a lot into a little bit of the weeds. I think it's good weeds that we've talked about, but it's definitely a little bit of the weeds and like
outside of Dover.
Really outside of Dover, but just NASCAR DFS as a whole is something to keep an eye on, and really just like how to approach everything, because it is very like weird the way that everything is happening right now with no practice and that type of thing. But that being said, as usual, lap based scoring is finishing position. You get 45 for first. You go down to 1 for 40th, even though there's not 40 cars. So 37, or you get 3 for 37th, I guess.
Sweet locked in floor of 3 points.
Yeah, exactly. And that's pretty standard. And coupling with that is your most improved award for position differential, and you get.
And we still haven't updated the slide.
It's still wrong, isn't it?
It's been wrong every week.
Yeah,
I love it.
I never even noticed.
It's just
that's pretty funny, actually.
Slide.
But
it's just minus your starting position by your finish position.
Yeah.
And
maybe we'll fix it next week. I don't know. But if you start 40th and you finish first, you still don't get 45.
Yeah, you still don't.
It's still not right. But no, just finishing position minus starting position, or vice versa. Actually, isn't it? It's vice versa.
It's where you finish.
It's starting position minus finishing position.
Yeah, how many points you gain versus where you're starting.
And from there, so obviously the higher starting position, the more opportunity. But also, as we've seen throughout the year, with the way the qualifying's happen, with no qualifying, you get a little bit of
the cream rising to the top.
Yeah, or the cream already at the top, continuing to be at the top is what.
Unless you have like kind of what we've talked about, like the wonky races or like.
Which I think we have a few this week where like we have a few guys that have position differential opportunity.
Like Keselowski, who said he didn't run well.
Keselowski, finishing 15th, starting 15th. I think he finished 17th. I don't know exactly where he finished, but like something like that definitely leads opportunity. Amarola, who wrecked early. Yep. Custer, who wrecked early. Alex isn't starting as high because he had some issues. Okay. He actually I think he had to make 2 unscheduled pit stops because of tires going down. But like there's definitely some opportunity this week that we'll talk about in a minute. But Dover, Delaware, 495 miles from Charlotte.
It's a hike. They're not sleeping in their own bed tonight.
It's not. I mean, probably not. No, probably not. It's a long ways. I would not be. 1 mile concrete, high banks, especially in the corners.
So is concrete more grip or less grip than asphalt?
It wears on the tires a little bit. It's pretty grippy. I'll tell you what. The one concrete track I've ever driven at, Kingsport, great track, and it's a lot of fun. I don't have anything to say.
So it's
about,
a big difference. You can feel a big difference as a driver?
100%. It's a lot of fun though. Great to run on concrete. That being said,
do drivers prefer one versus the other, or is each one kind of their own preference?
I don't know if they prefer one or the other. I think it definitely wears on the tires a little bit more.
Do they get an extra set or two?
That's a good question. I don't actually know. Okay. I think they get a normal amount of sets. I'm sure. Like it's Cup Series. They get more sets than they need. Mm-hmm. Like, let's be fair. Like Xfinity, like that. Like every week, like we don't talk about this, but like every week they're like Xfinity. They get 5 sets, and you're like, holy cow, 5 sets. And then in Cup, they're like, they get 17 sets, and you're like, okay.
That feels like a lot of time.
Like, and then it never comes an issue, and like that's probably a grievance that I have. With, no, it's not a good thing.
Why? You think the tire management should be more of an issue?
Yes.
Okay.
You're running 400 laps. Something should be an issue at some point, nonetheless. But that being said, we already talked about Miles the Monster. Look at him right there. That is a full-size Cup car right there in his hand.
That's awesome.
Full-size.
Very cool.
And because Dover International Speedway used to be called Dover Downs, we have to highlight the fact that there is a horse race
that's
track
so wild
in the infield.
I can't believe when you told me that. That's absolutely wild.
It is still called Dover Downs. But yeah, Dover Downs.
So it's the Dover International Speedway with the Dover Downs inside it.
Yeah, the Dover Downs and casino, something.
They have a casino also?
Oh, of course they have a casino. I mean, sorry, they have horse racing. Of course
in the infield, there's a casino?
It might be outside of the infield, but yeah. There's definitely a casino.
All right, I know where I'm going to my next race.
There we go. Perfect. But also the narrowness of the track also does sometimes lead to crashes.
Okay.
Sometimes leads to like big pileups. So like think like Martinsville, right? Where like track's pretty narrow. If a couple people wreck, everybody wrecks.
Takes everybody out.
I don't know if it's not as high of a degree as like Martinsville, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on. And like, you know, the struggle with DFS side is like, you don't really know.
You can't control that. No, you can't control that at all.
And
so
like,
will they run 2 lanes?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And then, like, it's wide enough to run 2 lanes, that type of thing. But yeah, I for DFS purposes, I don't know. For fun purposes, the wrecks will make it a little bit funner. I don't love Dover as a track, but that's me.
How is it in iRacing?
It's not bad. It's pretty hard.
Pretty hard?
Yeah. I mean, you get a hang of it, but it's mostly turning. So you turn, straight, turn, straight, turn.
Last week's track seemed like it would have been tough on iRacing, Darling.
Yes, it was. It is. Turn, gas, a little bit of gas, no gas. But anyways, I assume y'all don't. Yeah, I assume y'all don't watch us for me to give my iRacing opinion on this
or simulation.
That being said, my selection strategy, I think I will go a lot of 2 and 3 gunner builds. Maybe even a little bit more on the side of 2 gunners, and maybe like some position differential guys. So we'll talk about it in a minute. But I think the pricing kind of guides you towards a balanced build, where you do have a maybe, and I think
so that's like the 2.5 gunner, kind of what you were talking about last week.
And I think the hard part is that it all depends. If you think that Truex or Larson, or let me rephrase that, if you think Truex and Larson are going to be the gunners, then it's a lot different look of a build.
Because they're so expensive.
They're very expensive, especially Truex starting first.
Yep.
And
in DFS minus this year, from everything I've read about historic NASCAR, is that the pole has historically been a fairly bad DFS play.
Yeah. But, like, have you seen how good Truex is ran?
Yeah, well, I think this year is a lot different because of how qualifying, how starting position is assigned. I think historically it's just, whoever runs those fast laps, where they do three laps or something, whatever, or 3 sets or whatever it is. How qualifying work? 2 sets?
They have a weird stuff now, yeah.
But
because they do the group qualifying.
Oh, okay. So that's what I mean. So I don't think that's as representative.
Now they just hang out.
Whereas now it's like it's 100% correlated to performance, right? Or at least prior performance plus
prior
longer look prior performance.
Yeah. I think getting the gunner right is very important, and we'll talk about that especially as we jump into the gunner pool in where you decide to go. I think I personally will try to be a little bit different than just picking Truex and Larson every line. I'm probably still gonna have Truex and Larson because I think that there's a reason they've ran so well. I think there's a legitimate reason to have them. And like I said last week, literally I had built 20 lineups. I did not have any Truex, and on Sunday morning, I was like, I need Truex. I need to have Truex. I had to have any. And honest to God, I built 5 lineups with Truex, and that was the only money I made. That was the only one that placed because he dominated. And there's sometimes where not every race is going to be like that, where one person's going to lead 200 and whatever laps, and you have to have him in your lineup if you want to place, which happened last week.
But the purpose of the Dominator pool are, at least in my mind, the guys I'm putting in there are guys that have to either dominate or finish 1 or 2 type of positioning to pay off their salary or to make it worth it. Yep. So the reason I am separating them out is because there can only be so many guys that do that. So if there's 5 or 6 guys in the pool that meet those qualifications, meaning they have to finish 1, 2, or have to run out front for a long time to pay off their salary, I don't want more than a couple of them in my roster. Even if I, for salary-wise, could afford to put 5 in there, there's no way that all 5 of them can do those things.
But you can never actually do that. But yeah.
Yeah. I'm just saying, even if you could, you wouldn't want to. So that's why I limit it. But also, at least how I build lineups, if I'm putting someone in my gunner pool, I am giving them some percentage of my rosters. I'm not assigning a guy to my gunner pool without putting him in.
But you also do 150 rosters.
Yeah. It's a lot different. MMEing is a lot different. Mass multi-entering is a lot different. But that is kind of how I go about it. Is I build my Dominator pools. At least from like a theory. And then I will build different sets. So some of them I will force 2, some of them I will force 3. But I always am making sure that all of my guys that are in my gunner pool, and if there's a guy that I think should be a gunner, right? His salary requires that he be a gunner, or his place starting position requires that he be a gunner. If I am not going to assign them some ownership percentage in my pool, I'm just Xing them out, and I'm not going to play them at all that week.
Yeah, that's completely fair, and that's why on the bottom, my last bullet right there, boom, I put Keaton because I think it's important. I mean I talk every week about like my strategy. But Keaton has shown that he's a little bit better at actually applying said strategy, while I'm better at.
He knows the razors. He knows what's going on.
Like I get the pull right, but I don't always hit the strategy side. And Keaton is very good at that.
Roster construction is huge. I think that is. Yeah, thinking through why you're building the people you're building is.
So position differential.
But tell me, who is going to be in my pool this week, Ricky?
So position differential is something that's very interesting. Colt Custer, he's going to be super high on this week.
Because he wrecked early.
Yeah, and I still think you kind of have to play him. Like, him and Amarola are both going to be super high on this week. And if they run halfway decent, you're going to have them. Like,
Custer is basically Tyler Reddick early in the season. Starting 30th here, and like I think his upside is probably a little less than Reddick's.
It's definitely less, but yeah.
But yeah. Yeah.
It's closer to Amarola last week.
Yeah,
that we talked about, right?
Yeah.
Where like he was starting 27th, I think, or 28th, maybe 26th. But
like
late 20s. But like he was a little bit higher. But like at 7,700, like starting 30th, like Colt Custer's gonna finish in the top 20.
Yeah.
Like unless something happens.
Week. Yeah.
And so like at 7,700, it feels wrong. It feels low. They've been pricing Colt Custer kind of low all year, and he's kind of not been running great, which is like kind of been solidifying the fact that they've been pricing him low. But like, yeah, it's 77. It's still at 7,700. Like, especially if you look at like his average finish. Like I have it here. Average finish at Dover 11th. Average finish at 1 milers 16th. Like, if he finishes
like
16th,
makes a good tournament play. Same with Almirola, a good tournament play, right? So. Like, yes, they can crap out and, like, tank a lineup, but in a tournament, like, I don't care about that,
like
right?
GPP.
Yeah, in a big field tournament. Yeah, like, I don't care about that because, like, Ricky Bobby, you're first or you're last in the big tournaments, right? And so, like, to the extent I'm trying to Ricky Bobby one of these big GPPs, which is, like, all I play almost exclusively, I want someone like that because Colt Custer with his starting position of 30th and whatever, if he runs, like, he gets hot or, like, has a good restart at the end, right? Like, they have a caution at lap 15 and like somehow he gets up and finishes 13th, you will need to have him in your roster. Like you will not win a GPP without him.
I think the top 3 guys right here
they're all the same, right?
Guys that if they finish top 15, which they very well could, or any like you look at their average finishing position and it says they will.
Yep.
And like if they finish there, you probably are going to need them. Or some version of a combination of them,
yeah.
right? Kurt Busch is actually really interesting to me because we talked about him. We talked about him last week too, and he caught on fire at one point. It was not a great week for him. But that being said, again, nothing is perfect. His finishing position, his average at Dover is a little bit lower than it was at Darlington, but he's starting lower. He started like 17th or 18th last week, so he's starting like 10 positions lower.
Yep.
He's only like $500 more.
Yep.
Maybe 400 or 300. I think he might have been 8,400. I can't remember.
He was in the mid.
He was either 82 or 84, but like he's a little bit more expensive, but starting 10, 12 positions lower, and like definitely a guy that could get into the top 10 or top 15, top 10 area. I think he's a guy that. If I were to rank the top 3 right here, Custer, Amarola, Busch, on where they're going to finish, I would say Amarola, Busch, Custer. But I
might go Busch, Amarola, Custer, but yeah.
Fair. I don't disagree. But for price, I think Custer kind of is it's hard not to play with being that substantially cheaper.
I was going to say about Amarola and Custer is who I will have more of just because of their price
I think that's fair. And I mean, I talk about it every week. I've played a lot of Amarola every week because I think he's a really good driver. I think his car, obviously you talked about the Stewart Haas cars being not as good, but I think they are good. I think they are good.
Yeah.
He's not running the best. That's not true at all.
He's had the best finish of the Stewart Haas cars.
Definitely.
Well, Harvick had the
He's 28th in points.
Huh?
Amarola is 28th in points. There's no way he's running the best. Nonetheless. But that being said, I think that still, even with I think Harvick's a perfect example of this. Harvick this year, instead of being an every week top 2 car, has been an every week top 6 car. And
but more like a 4 to 6.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that makes it hard to play him as a gunner. But that being said, for Eric Almirola, that still makes his upside super high when he's starting 32nd.
Yeah.
And Custer's the same way, because they're teammate cars. Is that their ceiling may not be top 5 like last year, where Amarola was really good last year, and Custer won a race and ran well in multiple races last year, and I don't think their ceiling is necessarily that high, but I think it's still top 10,
6 to 10 type finishes.
And Amarola showed that a couple weeks ago when he finally ran a good race. I think he finished 8th or 7th, something like that. And they're definitely guys I think you have to play when they're this cheap, starting that low, and
I'm sure they'll be popular, right?
Probably, yeah.
But I think you have to.
I actually do and I also think that because Amarola is so low in points, that there's going to be a week where he kind of pops off even better. I think there's going to be a week where he leads laps and maybe even wins.
Because he's got a chance to go for it.
Because he needs to,
He needs to, yeah.
And it'll be interesting to watch. The bottom 2 here, though, which we haven't talked about at all. One, we talked about Keselowski a little bit earlier.
Yeah, he chalked up last week to just kind of not running well, which led to a starting position of 15th, where we've seen him run first and second.
Yeah.
Or we've seen him start first and second last week.
Exactly. And he's not cheap. He's 10-3. But if you compare him to Truex, he's cheap.
Yeah.
Or Larson,
the 11K guys.
11. Truex is 11.8, I believe, and
11.5 and 11.3.
Larson's 11.5, I believe.
Let's see.
If I'm not mistaken. And substantially cheaper than those two, adds position differential, and 100% could get out there and lead a bunch of laps. Obviously maybe not early in the race.
11.9 for Truex, 11.5 for Larson. 11.9. It's like you put him in a truck race, and all of a sudden he's Kyle Busch for $14,000 in trucks.
He was $16,000 one race.
Jeez Louise.
Still insane. But Keselowski is definitely somebody who I'm interested in. I'm probably going to have a good smattering of, probably close to half my 20 rosters, honestly.
If you can get whatever the issues that plagued the car last week figured out, he could easily pick through this roster and end up front. Yeah.
Suarez is interesting to me. I think he's finally starting in a position, and they aren't increasing his price, even though he's starting further back. And I think he's an easy fit in to play this week because
the 6,300 is nice.
Yeah, starting 24th. I think he'll probably run 15th to 20th. And definitely pay off $6,300.
We've seen him run well this year.
Yeah, I honestly the way that the Trackhouse cars ran this year, he could definitely run top 15. But even if you ran 15th to 20th, I think he pays off his $6,300.
And he lets you get some of the more expensive guys.
Exactly. And we'll talk about it a little bit more. Like I said, I don't think there's as many guys at the bottom this week that provide that opportunity.
I know. I was looking through it earlier, and it's am I really going to play Justin Haley this week?
I don't love it.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, favorites to win: Truex, Larson, Hamlin, Kyle Busch, Chase Elliott.
Do we just cut and paste those every week? It's just the same.
I don't copy. I don't.
The odds update.
I literally look at it and I move them up and down. It's not a complete replace. Up and down, and then change their starting position and their salary every time.
Same guys though.
That being said, one person that I'm actually really attracted to, very similar to Keselowski,
just on a spiritual level.
It's mostly
just attracted to him.
Mostly Ryan Blaney every week. It's the mustache. Really.
He's got that eyes.
It's the mustache.
Okay.
No. One person that I really like based on his price, his starting position and everything is Joey Logano. So I'm probably going to have a lot of lineups that start with Logano, Keselowski, and then kind of go from there because I think
you want them to get out front pretty quick, but I think they
can.
Yeah,
100%. And you know, honestly, the thing about it is that with those two, you can kind of add in another like that can be really your 3-gunner, right? Somebody like Kyle Busch at 10 grand too as well. Like jumps out at me is like he's ran really really well. He hasn't necessarily like other than the race he won. He hasn't necessarily like ran up front. He led some laps last week before Truex just decided to lead every lap. But like at 10 grand starting 6, like he's substantially cheaper than the top 3 guys for no actual discernible reason.
Yeah. I mean he's even cheaper than Chase Elliott starting 8th.
Yeah, and I like Chase too. I'll probably have more Kyle Busch than I will have Chase Elliott, but I like both of them.
And I like them both better than Kevin Harvick. So
I don't know if I'd agree with that, but I'll probably have a smattering of all 3. But that being said, I
like Byron down there at 3rd. I like Byron a couple weeks ago. I like Byron again.
You know what I really like? Blaney. So I was already talking about Blaney's mustache, but Blaney at 7.
Aside from his mustache.
Yeah, 8,400. I talked about him last week when he was like 9,100, and I said getting Ryan cheap. Blaney for 9,100, no matter where he starts, like I like the idea.
Starting 7th, he still has value. It's not like he all he has to do to finish top 5.
I don't know if you see it here. He's finished the top 11, 8 out of the last 9 races.
Yeah,
he hasn't necessarily. He's only had a couple top 5s. And so he hasn't pushed up, but
he's getting shots on goal and he's right there. I mean, yeah.
I mean, he's not running bad. Like it's not like he's like running like 15th to 20th. Like there's no discernible reason why he's $8,400. Like honestly, that like legitimately, I will have multiple rosters and it may kill me and it may not be successful when Truex or Larson lead most of the laps. But I'm gonna have multiple lineups that are Keselowski, Logano, Blaney. Like those are my top 3. Yeah. And then filling it out. Because they allow you to do so much.
You don't have to get some of the scrubs at the bottom.
Exactly.
Sorry, scrubs, but less funded drivers.
Yeah, no, exactly. And like, it just makes a lot of sense. 8,400 for Blaney just blows my mind.
Yeah, no,
I don't get it.
I think that is a nice price down there.
I think we've talked about Byron a little bit every week, really, in that, like, it feels like because he's been starting up front so much, it almost feels like that DraftKings like doesn't like quite realize how good he is.
Yeah, and he starts up front, but he still finishes up front.
Yeah, and like he hasn't outside of when he won at Homestead, he hasn't really like popped off to where like he's been like that lap leader gunner. But like every week he finishes top 5.
Like he could have 2 weeks ago. He ran behind Keselowski for a ton of laps.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's not like he just didn't get out in front of Keselowski.
He's somebody who they keep pricing under $9 grand. He's creeping up a little bit, but still like under $9 grand. And I don't know. I'll be interested. There's going to be a week where he doesn't like he has like issues or something, and he finishes like 25th. And he starts like 18th or 20th, and like I'm so interested to see where
just won't pump him up. They'll
9,200. Yeah, 9,200. They'll give him the Alex Bowman treatment. Yeah. But like,
he'll be stone chalk.
I'm so interested to see when that happens, and hopefully it doesn't happen. But like, it's like by default.
Because he's a super nice guy. We met him at Quail Hollow.
We met him at Quail Hollow. Really nice guy. I yelled at him across the sea of people.
And then he was very gracious and took pictures with us.
Cool, super cool guy.
His girlfriend even took pictures with us.
And
before us.
Yeah, but he's ran so well this year, and like he's taken such a step. And I know Chad Canals talked about it a little bit. Who was the crew chief last year? Who was the crew chief for Jimmy Johnson when he won his 7 championships? That's for you. That's for no one else. Everyone else in the world knows.
Everyone else knows that.
Yeah. But talked about how like, he has so much like talent and potential, and like the driver that he was like last year versus the driver that he's gonna be in 3 years is like astronomical. And I think like this year is the year where William Byron has like shown that he can. He's so good, and he's just been so consistent. And he like like, we talk about Kyle Larson every week because Kyle Larson could pop off every week, but, like, I actually haven't looked to see what the average finish one versus the other, but I'm pretty sure William Byron's higher. Like,
I wouldn't be surprised.
I'm pretty sure it is.
Because Larson had a couple
yeah.
of rough
and but like it's just, like the way like William Byron has performed so well
and so consistent. Really, that's what's been amazing.
People really haven't appreciated it, so maybe one day they'll appreciate it. Also, great pace.
We appreciate you, William Byron.
But nonetheless, I also really like Delaney. I like all three of those odds to watch. Both potential to win and also on the DFS side. Some weeks I just include people that I'm like, I just like this odds. But there's not any like crazy good odds this week. Like honestly, like even like you look at like Logano, Byron, and Blaney, and they're all still only like 16, 22 to 1.
Yeah.
But nothing crazy this week. I didn't see. But as we look at Dover, the top 5 with not just pure position differential finishing position. Colt Custer again jumped out.
Yeah, that makes sense with his 30th starting position.
Yeah, Amarola right there too. Harvick, which is very interesting. Average finish of 3rd is up there, and that's not including the fact that he's led a bunch of laps.
Yeah.
And again, he kind of jumps out every week like this, and I personally think that there's going to be a week where he returns to form and just like leads a bunch of laps. And
I think Stuart Haas gets their stuff together.
I keep having him in there. But that being said, Kurt Busch, as we talked about, Eric Jones is interesting because like we pumped him quite a bit last week, and he ran well, not great. He's kind of a lot down for most of the time. Starting 23rd is a little high.
Because he's probably going to finish 20th.
Love him. He's probably going to finish, I would say 17th, but yeah. I don't love him. He's not my favorite play in all of this, but I think he's definitely a viable play. I don't think he's my favorite play.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Is how I would phrase it, right?
He's not getting X'd out of my pool, but
he's in my player pool, but probably not going to make my 20 lineups much, if at all.
Yeah.
But if you look at the rest of the top 10, Keselowski, Truex, Suarez, Larson, Bowman. So 4 out of 5 of those have also gunner potential, right? And like this doesn't incorporate gunner potential. So like that's something that I definitely want to keep an eye on. Is that like, you know, these are people that definitely can finish up front, and if they lead some laps, then
you're gonna need to have them.
Must-haves.
Yeah.
Which again we talk about when we get to like the actual value side. So again, it's very much of the same people we just talked about, right? Custer, Amarola, Jones, Suarez, Busch, the Kurt variety. And I don't think there's anything surprising here. The only 2 gunners that were in the top 10 were Harvick and Keselowski, which is interesting to me.
Okay, that makes sense. Because Keselowski provides a little bit of point differential, so I think that's why he ends up popping there.
Yeah, and like we said, he's a little bit less expensive than maybe he should be. But I mean, I think especially Custer and Amarola, there's so many reasons to play them. I think they may be high on, but that doesn't mean they're not good plays.
But they probably should be.
Jones is like we talked about. Suarez, I think, is a good play on the lower end, and then Kurt Busch again. I like maybe not quite as much as the Amarola Custer, but I mean the thing about it is like Kurt Busch, like I mean he's such a good driver, and like the Ganassi cars aren't bad in a way that like. He could pop off and finish like 5th.
Yeah.
I feel very similar to how with Amarola. Like I think Amarola's in a little bit better car, and I mean they're similar drivers really. Like obviously Kurt has a championship, but like I think they're very similar drivers. I think Amarola's in a little bit better car, but like I think Kurt Busch has shown a little bit more consistency.
Yeah.
And so like, but both of them could pop off and finish 5th or even better. But like
that's their upside.
That's a discernible upside, right? And but no, just something to keep an eye on. Definitely hard. I think they're definitely hard plays this week. Looking at 1 mile specifically, nothing that's surprising here. I included this just to look at like the other 1 miles would be like Phoenix and New Hampshire, and so just to keep an eye on if anything was crazy different.
It's exactly the same.
Basically the same. Literally the same, honestly. Like
Keselowski jumped up into the top 5.
Keselowski jumped up, and I don't remember who was actually in
Eric Jones.
Jones bumped to 6.
Slacker.
Perfect. Yeah. But again, Truex, Larson, Hamlin jumped into the top 10.
Okay. So it's nice to see Denny there.
1 mile. So it may make you feel a little bit better about playing him, though you should feel pretty good about playing him either way. And then as we look at top value,
Haley.
I get it, like discernibly, like how math works, but like, yeah, I'm still probably not gonna play him. I put him. I when I was Xing people out of my lineup on my Excel, I was Xing people out with red, and for him, I put like a dark orange.
Very, very likely an X, but not quite there yet.
Like that car has just not been good enough so far. Like I think Justin Haley's a great driver. Like he's shown in the college cars in Xfinity, like he's very good. But like, no, I still don't. Maybe 5,300 is cheap.
You can do some interesting things with roster construction.
But like he's probably gonna get lapped 3 times, maybe twice. Like,
don't love to see it.
No, but the rest of them.
And this isn't a race where we expect like some crazy crashing that she's gonna get through.
Outside of if there's just like that one random wreck that we were talking about, where like everyone wrecked to the narrow track, but like probably not.
Barring that, we're not getting attrition finishes.
I don't see it happening personally.
Yeah.
But that being said, if you look at the potential gunners with value, Harvick, Keselowski, Logano, who I talked about
came
before,
back up, okay,
and Kyle Busch. I really like Logano and Kyle Busch and Keselowski. Really, those bottom 3 a lot. And I'm probably going to play a lot of those 3, and it may not work because I think there's a good shot that one of Truex, Larson, Hamlin, it ends up being a heavy gunner, but I think those are good alternatives to those.
Especially in tournaments where you need to take a shot.
Yeah, and maybe like I keep talking about like I'm gonna have lineups with Keselowski, Logano, and Blaney is what I said earlier, but like I think there's definitely like legitimate reasons to have like lineups of like Larson, Keselowski, Blaney, or Larson, Keselowski, Logano, and then rest of it, or like Truex, where you don't have Truex, Larson, blah 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 blah, or Hamlin, Larson, blah blah blah. Those like $11,000 guys, you don't have multiple of those because we've seen this year like it's most of the time it's one person that you think and is the favorite that's going to like dominate, and then it's 1 or 2 other guys that like are definitely like potentials, but like aren't necessarily like the favorites to do it.
Yeah.
Like last week is a perfect example. Like other than Truex, like leading a ton, but like Kyle Busch, like we talked a little bit about Kyle Busch, but like he wasn't a guy that was like
we think he's
gonna be up there and blah 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 blah. But like he got up there and was leading laps, and so yeah, I understand why you would, and maybe it's gonna be beneficial to people who have like a Hamlin Larson or a Hamlin Truex lineup if they are, and like I get it. I'm probably not gonna have many of those in a 20-person lineup. Maybe you do in a 150 lineup.
Yeah, I still haven't gotten my individual mixes of guys, but I will mix and match my guys up top just so that I have, like I said, in a 150, I am trying to get a little more exposure to different situations.
Yep. And like I said, gunner prediction. I think the top 5's pretty easy to pick from. Truex, Larson, Hamlin, Harvick. Again, we talked about it a gazillion times.
Logano's not on here.
I was gonna say I would add Logano to this. Definitely didn't necessarily pop off in.
And his price, he may not need to be a dominator. He's at 9,500.
I think that's very true. I think he is a guy that like it doesn't really make sense to me why he's not like a 10-5.
And so because of his price, and that's kind of what I was talking about, like why guys I put in my dominator pool, guys that don't need to dominate don't have to go in your dominator pool.
Yeah.
That's the thing. The reason I'm building a dominator pool is that these are the only way these guys pay their salary off and end up in a winning lineup is if they dominate.
Yeah.
And so I'm putting them in a dominator pool to limit the amount of the times I get them together and the amount of lineups I get them in.
Yeah.
And so if someone like Logano at 9,500 9,400 or 9,500, I think he is this week.
95, I think.
And he's starting 10th or 9th, like 8th,
6th.
I'll start making things up.
Know.
But anyways, like the point is, he doesn't.
We'll see him on the next slide. We'll see him on the next slide.
Okay, and so that is, I think, a fair consideration when you're building your dominant.
I think that's definitely fair. And like we'll see on the next slide. Like I have my gunner pool, but it is very much just everyone that's above a certain price that you could consider as a potential gunner. Maybe not necessarily, as Keaton talked about, somebody who would necessarily has to fall into that gunner.
So you may not want to limit them in that way.
Yeah.
That's where you get in like your halves we talked about last week. You had guys that didn't fall into
like I had multiple Bowmans who obviously, like, because Bowman had tire issues and that type of thing, like he didn't end up like, paying off in those lineups. But like Bowman's the perfect example last week. Somebody who started like 18th, 20th, 25th, 24th. Yeah, some 15th. I don't know. 15th to 25th.
A little wild range.
He started somewhere up there.
He started the race, y'all.
Yeah, he definitely started the race and not in the top 15. And but definitely had a guy that had position differential, but also is a guy that, like, if in the right conditions, you could definitely see getting up towards the front and leading laps and that type of thing.
Yeah.
I think that's somebody who, like, when we're talking about 2.5,
he has that upside.
Yeah, and and I think that's a perfect example. Somebody like when William Byron won at Homestead is really the perfect example of that. Somebody who had a lot of position differential. I think he started like somewhere in the teens.
Okay.
Wasn't like overly like expecting anyone to do it. Good value at like 8,100 or something dumb like that. And then just like walked to the front and just led laps on laps on laps. But yeah, I think it's definitely something to keep an eye on. Is that like maybe there are some people who could hop out, and the weeks that those people do hop out, if you don't have them, you're screwed.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part. Is like a lot of weeks is going to be like last week where like Truex dominates and like you just want to have the right hodgepodge. Like you need to have Truex, and the rest of like the jockeying for position is just like, do you have the right people in the right spots, right? Yep. But some weeks it's very much like the week that Chris Buescher was really good, and like he didn't finish as well, but like the week where he got out and led like 70 laps or something like that.
Yep.
And like you kind of needed him in the lineup to be sustainable. But I put my other picks here as all 300 cars, and something I put will the rest of the Hendrick cars catch up with Larson and Byron. So I talked about it a little bit earlier how, like, honestly, we talk about Larson every week, but William Byron has honestly performed as well. Yet, like, he has the same number of wins, too. But, like, he doesn't have the flash that, like, Larson has.
He isn't named.
But, like, those two have been carrying. And, like, obviously, like, Alex Bowman had his win at Richmond and has ran pretty decent. And Chase Elliott doesn't have a win, but has ran pretty decent. But, like, the way those cars are running, it would seem to indicate that, like, at some point they get towards the front, too, in the same way like some of the other cars are.
You'd think so, yeah.
Especially Chase, actually, is the one that jumps out at me. I don't know if this is the week, but, like, it's somebody who, like, I don't necessarily play. I played quite a bit of him last week, and he ran just okay. But, like, I don't like not playing a lot of Chase starting 8th or 6th or whatever he is starting at, like, sub 10 or right at 10.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like not playing him there because, like, there's a lot of potential there. So, but as we go to the actual gunner poll, like I said, this is literally just the people that I think could be. There's a couple guys could dominate. I think there's definitely some people here who, like Keaton said, maybe don't necessarily have to dominate, have to be gunners who pay off themselves.
The biggest one I see there is probably Alex Bowman because of starting 16th and only being 9,200. He's
cheaper this week than
he doesn't have to lead laps. He doesn't have to get fastest laps. I mean, if he just finishes like 5th or top 5, whatever, I mean, it's fine. He can creep in there after everything, and he would easily pay off that salary. So that's the one I see there. Byron, the reason I would include him in your pool is just starting 3rd. I think 8,900 is like quite on the borderline. Like he's almost cheap.
Yeah, and we talked about it a little bit last week because I I included him in the second slide.
Yeah.
And you basically, you
because
basically said that you wanted him to be a gunner, and I think that's fair.
Yeah.
And I think I see this in Xfinity a lot too. Is that the people who start like 3rd to 6th provide a lot of opportunity because they always price them kind of a little bit too low.
Yeah,
and somebody like Jeb Burton is the perfect example for Xfinity. Is that every week he starts top 5 and they price him at 8,800 and you're
and he finishes top 5.
Yeah, and he just does and
yep.
It's hard not to have him in a lineup.
And that's sort of why I want Byron here in my Dominator pool, because I think I do want him to finish. I mean, I want him to finish up there, which means he needs an opportunity to either lead laps, run fastest laps, or finish really highly. I think he's got to do one of those. So I agree with putting him in your pool. I like all of these guys, and I will probably have
a smattering
of everyone. Maybe not Kevin Harvick. Kevin Harvick I might be a wait and see on.
I think that's fair. I really like I said here, I really like Bowman, Keselowski, Logano. I also really like Kyle Busch, and as I think about it more, I like Kyle Busch more.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I think that starting 6th, he has a little bit of position differential, and basically you're getting Kyle Busch, who is probably a top 3. Probably a top 3
top
driver.
3 has 15
the top 3
drivers.
drivers 20 drivers. No, but Kyle Busch is definitely a top 3 driver in the series. I think Harvick is too, but I don't know who the third one in that group is.
Larson?
Probably.
Isn't Larson?
Probably.
Yeah.
Neither are they.
Sorry, Byron. Sorry, Logano.
I think
sorry, Keselowski.
I'm not gonna rank them all offhand right now, but yeah, fair. But anyways, you're getting Kyle Busch and you're getting him for $1,100 cheaper than Denny. You're getting him for $11,900 cheaper than Truex, with 4 to 5 position differential points cheaper. I get it. Truex has dominated some races this year and ran really, really well. He won 3?
He's won 3.
He won 3 races this year, and Denny's been the best car, but I would much rather have Kyle Busch at $10,000.
You can just do more with your salaries too. You don't end up getting stuck into the same bills. When you're doing, especially if you try to put more than one of the 11K guys, you're really getting into some very similar roster construction that a lot of people, because we talked about there's not a lot of guys down in that lower price tier, you will get shoehorned into the same builds as a lot of people. So starting Truex Larson, which is, great, right? Just everything in a vacuum, those are probably the 2 best plays in the field. But when you start there, you are automatically dipping down low, and since there's limited options down low, you're going to have a duplicated build. And I just don't see that being a positive expected value build.
And not only that too, but the problem is that if Truex or Larson isn't one of the main dominators, then you're screwed.
Oh, at that price point, they have to be.
They probably have to lead 100 laps, right?
Yeah. And finish top 3. They're expensive. I threw Hamlin in that category too, at being expensive and just to finish top 3.
And Hamlin's interesting to me because there's been weeks where he's been starting on the pole and he was 10-5.
Yeah.
Or even less.
11-1 this week since then.
I don't get it. And the thing is,
Hamlin's been a really good car.
The thing is if they are the dominant, and that's why I put it here at the bottom. I said I'm still probably gonna have some of all 3 of those.
Yep.
Because there's a good shot that at least one of the 3 leads 100 plus laps.
And that's why you build dominator pools, right? That's 100% why, because they aren't worth paying if they don't dominate, but if they do, you gotta have them.
Yeah, it's super interesting this week. I feel like they really came at the. I'm very intrigued. Normally you don't see, on a normal week, you don't see the pole sitter that high.
I honestly think we've had super high ownership on Truex, and we've seen him just crush races, and he's won 3 races. Yeah, I think it is an attempt to keep ownership down because I think absent that, given that he has just won 3 races, no one else has won 2, And just in the fashion he's won races, it's not like he's won on a restart at the end. He's won races pole to finish almost in some of these.
Fair.
So
yeah, and but I mean that being said, like I said, at the end of the day, like I just find it a lot easier to build lineups that have Keselowski, Kyle Busch, even Harvick, who you obviously don't like, but still Logano, and then adding in.
I don't blame him at the price point. I don't blame you playing him.
Just over those at the top. It's just and maybe they will be. I don't know. I think that's where, like, I think one of those three will be honestly, I would almost do builds where, like, I had one of those three.
In like a rule max of one.
Amount, in like a decent amount of, like, lineups. If I was doing 150, which I don't do 150, but, like, I would, like, if I had 150, I would have at least 30 to 50 lineups with at least one of those people.
That makes sense.
And then maybe the rest of it probably next to none.
Yeah, and that's probably a good way to build. I mean, honestly, you get your exposure to them, and then you can build a lot more balanced builds.
Yeah. But as we look at the more cheaper,
kind of that middle tier price.
Yes.
Which, if you're going for the up tier, the 11K guys, you're not getting these guys.
No, which I think sucks because there's a lot of potential here.
Which is, I think, it is something to be said about that kind of more balanced build.
Yeah.
You get these guys.
I really like basically all of these guys, honestly, as I look a little bit closer at them. I really like Kurt, as we talked about. I really, really like Delaney, starting 7th. I don't understand why he's 8,400. I just don't get it. I don't. But he's really the only one that's, like, doesn't have position differential play.
Yeah.
But, like, 8,400, holy cow. Like,
and we can see him win a race. I mean, that's easy.
He's gonna, like, he's a top 5 plus car. Like, he if you're like, who's gonna finish in the front of all of these cars that are listed right here? It's gonna be Ryan Blaney, right?
100% of the time.
And 8,400. I just don't get it. Neither here nor there. But yeah, I like Ryan Blaney a lot. I really like Amarola. I actually like DiBenedetto this week at 18th. He's actually ran really, really well. He had a not great week last week, but, like, he ran the 2 weeks before. He ran really well, and he'd been starting, like, the top 5, so I hadn't played him.
Okay.
But
now he's got a little more PD back.
But with PD and starting, at 7,800, I like him. That probably will be my pivot off of Custer some.
If he's very popular.
Reddick is really interesting. So I want to talk about Reddick for a little bit. We are way over on our normal time, but we're going.
We're cruising. We had a lot of good talks.
Reddick is somebody who...
Sell me on Reddick, because I don't like Reddick this week.
I love Tyler Reddick every week.
I like him as a person. I don't like him as a DFS
So, he has shown week to week, he has been really, really, really good early in races. So, if you watch the Darlington race, he was top 3 for the first 100 plus laps.
Okay.
And, unfortunately, they have not been... They've either gotten slower, or alternatively they just haven't improved as much as other cars throughout the race. So I think it's definitely something to keep an eye on. Maybe not this week starting in 12th. Honestly, maybe I like Austin Dillon a little more starting in 14th.
Yeah.
I don't dislike either one of those. I like both of them in my pool because I think both of them have top 5 potential. Maybe not. That's probably upside, right? Top 5. But, like, I think both of them have 5th to 10th, like, potential easy.
Mm.
And I mean, I'm a huge Tyler Reddick homer. If you'd watched our show at all, you would know that. But I think the way that he's been able to perform early in races, I think at some point they're going to be able to transfer that into later in races, and at some point it's going to transfer into where they're finishing. He's just been too good. He's such a good race car driver. He's been good at every level that he's ever ran at. And I think the way that the RCR cars have ran, really this year and even last year too, but, like, he's really, really good. We looked at, like, Austin Dillon last year led 50 of some laps, or 49 laps here. So definitely give potential. So I'm going to definitely have some lineups with 1 to 2, probably not both of them, but, like, one of these guys in, like, a few of my lineups, because I think they definitely could get in the top 10. And at 7,400, like, that's all they really have to do to make it even remotely worthwhile. And if they start... The thing about Tyler Reddick that's, like, been... I think is it makes him a very attractive fantasy play is that he is capable of, even when he's not leading laps, getting fastest laps.
Okay.
So we see it every week. Like, he gets fastest laps. And maybe some more than others, depending on how well he's running. But, like, he gets a decent amount of fastest laps. And so, like, you know, if you get that coupled with, you know, a top 10. You know, if he finishes 8th with, like, you know, 20 fastest laps, like, that's a good week from Tyler Reddick. And 7,600, like, easy pace off. And obviously there's the risk to it. And, like, I think there's definitely a lot of legitimate reasons why to play other people. But, like, I would rather play Tyler Reddick, Austin Dillon than the bottom 2 on this list.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'd definitely rather than Stenhouse.
Yeah.
I'm not positive by Eric Jones.
I think Stenhouse is somebody that's interesting to me, and this is why I included him on the list, is that, like, he's definitely somebody that I think could, like, pop. Like, I think he's a guy who, like, could finish 10th. Like, and
you have to have him at that point.
Like, yeah. And I'm not sure it's going to happen, and I wouldn't count on it. But he's been running well. He's not been running bad. He's been running good. And, like, some weeks he runs better than others. But, like, he's definitely been running in the 10 to 20 range. Most of it's probably closer to the 15 to 20 range. But, like, maybe, like, the 13 to 18 range is really what he was running mostly. But, like, he's definitely a guy that could pop off to 10th. And at $7,100 is super cheap. And just makes a ton of sense. I would rather have him than Eric Jones.
Okay. I'd probably go the other way on that. But I'd probably save Stenhouse for Talladega.
I mean,
or Dayton.
Completely fair. But nonetheless, yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna every week probably pump up the RCR cars, I guess. Yeah. I just really like Tyler Reddick. I think he's a great driver.
And then our cheapies.
Yeah. There's not as
that's what we're talking about. There's not as much.
As many this week under. Well, I don't know if there's under. Last week we did it under 6, and we have none under. Well, other than Ryan Preece. There's not as many. Yeah, it's hard this week.
And I don't like as many of these drivers as much. You don't have like that mid-30s starting guy that you're like, you know, I'll just throw him in.
No, like Ryan Preece last week was like 5,600, maybe 58. No, I think it was 56. And he was like starting 29th, and you were like, oh, okay, I like this a little bit. And like he ended up being pretty good. He wasn't in the optimal, but like he was still in some like good lineups. But like this week, 25th. Like I think he's a 17 type upside, and like if he finishes 17th, 100% pays off 5,900.
But if he finishes 25th,
it's more borderline.
Yeah. Or if he finishes 35th,
he kills you.
Yeah.
But yeah, and the rest of the guys on this list I think are interesting too. Like Chastain, Briscoe, we kind of talk about them every week in the same vein, right? They kind of been starting similarly every week. They kind of keep
their price goes a little higher when they start a little lower, and then they start in the mid-teens.
They keep kind of putting Ross Chastain a little bit higher than Briscoe, which I don't really agree with, but neither nor there. And yeah, I don't know. I really like Suarez here. I will say
Suarez is probably my favorite play on this board. Or McDowell, honestly, he's got some upside. I prefer Suarez.
Yeah, I've X'd out my McDowell basically every week this year,
and that's been a good play, except for Daytona.
Well, yeah, since I wasn't playing at Daytona, so but like literally every week, and it's been fine. But like he's getting to a point where like starting 21st, like he's shown that he can run well, and like he's shown that he can run 15th plus. He's had a few weeks where he's been even better than that, but like I think he's around a 15th place car.
That makes sense.
And at starting 21st at 6,200, I think it's definitely a viable play.
Yeah.
I like Suarez a little bit better, with a little bit more position differential, and also I just like Suarez better just personally, but.
Yeah, no, I think he's got a little higher upside. I think he's a little bit shown a little bit more pop this season, except for McDowell's win. Yeah. And starting 3 positions back and only $100 more. Yeah. I agree with Suarez.
Yeah, Briscoe's interesting to me. Starting 17th, so like you have no position differential opportunity. He's definitely a guy that could I mean, obviously we talked about Colt Custer and Eric Almirola as teammates, and definitely guys that could get in the top 10. And I think at some point Briscoe's going to pop up into the top 15, top 10, like that area. He just hasn't done it yet. And so when they keep pricing him low like this, and they keep artificially keeping him low, like it kind of almost makes me want to play him more.
Take a shot on him.
Like I know that he's starting 2 positions in front of Ross Chastain, but I would much rather play Briscoe instead of Chastain because I think that Briscoe has a higher upside. Okay. And I think Chastain's a great driver, but like I think as far as like the equipment, and I mean Briscoe's just shown like he won 9 races last year in Xfinity. Like he's very good, and obviously it's a hard jump to make from Xfinity to Cup, but like at some point it's going to happen, and we've seen it happen. Sometimes it takes a couple of years, sometimes it takes half a season.
There you go.
Like I think Tyler Reddick is a good example of like somebody who did it really quickly, who like kind of hopped up, and like he's had like some growing pains here and there, but like is somebody who like he's now consistently top 15 even as a second year driver. And then Colt Custer is kind of like the opposite side of that, where like he had some success, he got a win, he had some really good runs, and then has kind of been running blah this year, right? Yeah. And so like it's hard. The jump is really, really hard. Everyone in Cup is the best that's ever came through Busch at the time, or the Xfinity Series at the time. And so like it's really hard to make that jump. And like you look at this, like Chastain or Suarez won the Xfinity Championship. Chastain, did he win a truck championship, or he was close to the truck championship? Briscoe won a ginormous amount of races in Xfinity. Like you go through everybody, and everybody has something. Yep. And it's just hard. It's hard to make that jump to be very successful, and that's why it's really impressive when someone like William Byron does it. Is that like, and that's what I think NASCAR does a not good job at, is like highlighting how impressive it is that somebody like William Byron is running so well right now.
Yep.
And
but because he doesn't have the wins.
Yeah, and like they just want to highlight, like they just keep highlighting the same 3 people every week because that's what they do. And it's very frustrating, but neither here nor there. As we look, my verdict is let's win some money.
I love it. That's a good verdict this week.
I would like to win some money.
I'd like to win some
money. My player
money.
pool is the exact same. Like, this was not intentional. Every week. Same size as last week.
Okay. How many drivers?
Exact same size. 20, maybe 18 to 20.
Okay. Solid.
I don't know off the top of my head. But honestly, most of that is, it might be a little bit, it might be like 21 or 22. But like most of that is like the gunner pool.
Yeah.
Honestly, like I feel like honestly after the gunner pool, like the rest of the pool is pretty low. So you just build I'm sure you
mix and match your gunners.
You just mix and match a bunch of gunners and then you win, and then it makes me mad.
We'll check in on next week. See if that went this week.
As usual, make sure to comment below on who you think the gunners will be, who you think the winner will be, who your sleeper pick will be.
Sure. What's your sleeper? Let's hear it.
I don't know.
Blaney's Ricky's sleeper, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not sure Blaney calls as a sleeper, but
Blaney's gonna get up there. Play him $8,400. It's dumb. It's just dumb to me.
Let's do it.
Nonetheless. Yeah. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share, blah 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 blah.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Bye.